by a female sitting right here on the Chicago River still. This building is designed in the architecture style that's known as modernism. Modernist architects, they had a slogan, and their slogan is less is more. So if you look at this building, you're not going to see any decoration or ornamentation on this building. You can contrast that with the Wrigley building, which has a ton of decoration all the way around the roof line, but then there's all kinds of different little patterns and the tiles that make up the Wrigley building. You do not get that here on a modernist building. Modernist architects did not put decorations on their building. Modernist architects were also really keen on a couple other elements in their building. We're going to see these a lot on today's cruise. There's a lot of modernist buildings in the city of Chicago because we really grew up in the 1950s and 60s when these buildings were being constructed. So not only do we have no decoration or ornamentation, we have a simple geometric shape. Here we have a rectangle. Most modernist buildings always have a flat rooftop, and they have a uniform pattern of windows that repeats itself all the way around the building. Don't worry guys, if you did not commit all those fun facts about modernist buildings to memory, we will revisit them a handful of times on today's cruise. And directly in front of that building is that glass building with a thin metal roof on the right. That is Apple Michigan Avenue. It was completed in 2017, and it was designed by Foster & Partners. Foster & Partners is an architecture firm based out of the UK, and they have designed almost every single Apple store that exists around the world. So really cool to design the Apple store that also stands here in the city of Chicago. The Apple store is constructed in an architecture style that's known as contemporary. In 20 years, we're probably going to be calling this something different because we typically name our architecture movements looking backwards.
Alright, we're moving now.
In the contemporary style of architecture.
Chicago River Tour.
Contemporary architects are really thinking sustainably about the building material choices that they're using in their buildings. Everybody back in the day, everybody wanted to build the tallest building in the world. Now everybody wants to build the greenest building in the world. And so what you're not going to see in Apple Michigan Avenue is you're going to see hardly in that building. And also, the rooftop at Apple Michigan Avenue is made out of something you typically do not see in architecture. The rooftop on this building is actually made out of carbon fiber. You don't see carbon fiber used too often in buildings. It's mostly used in maritime vessels, race cars, as well as aircraft. But here at Apple Michigan Avenue, they decided to design the roof out of carbon fiber because it's really light. And so, as we get closer to the building, you're going to notice there are only 4 concrete pillars that are supporting the roof. And that's because concrete is the most carbon-rich element we could possibly include in a building. And architects do not want to have to pay for all the carbon offsets that it takes in order to have a green building. So they had to make sure the roof on Apple Michigan Avenue was thin and light enough that it could actually be mostly supported by the glass wall that surrounds that building. We call those glass walls curtain walls in architecture. So as you pull up next to Apple Michigan Avenue, just look through the building. You're only going to see those little 4 concrete pillars that are in there supporting the building. And the building was designed to actually kind of disappear in the landscape. So they wanted to make sure you could actually see through the building. So everybody that was in the park behind it, that's called Pioneer Court. It was named that for our founder as well as a couple other industrial engineers that were here in the city. So it really allows you to see directly down to the river from Pioneer Court, which is a great experience. It's also said that if you see Apple Michigan Avenue from above, it looks like a closed MacBook. The architect said that was not part of the original design. But if I was the chief marketing officer for Apple, I would certainly be slapping my logo on top of that baby. Because if you see it from above, it certainly does look like a closed MacBook. And what a great way to get a little bit of advertisements. But I'm not the chief marketing officer for Apple, so I don't get to make those decisions. Alright, we're going to the left. You guys get pretty easy job from here. We're staying to the left the whole way down the main stem of the building. Or main stem of the river, not the building. First building we're going to talk about over here, though, is this one that has a giant dome on top. It kind of has a little curve to it. This is the London House Chicago, completed in 1923, designed by Alfred Oschuler. This building is in the architecture style that's known as Beaux-Arts. Beaux-Arts takes its name from the L'École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, France. It's one of the first architecture schools that actually existed around the world. You get a lot of Beaux-Arts architecture in Western Europe as well as the eastern half of the United States. And Beaux-Arts architecture has a lot of influence from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. So as soon as you pop up underneath this bridge, if you check out the top of the building, you're going to notice that giant dome that's up there. We call that dome Belvedere. Belvedere means beautiful view. And that dome might remind you of a temple that you would see in ancient Greece. And directly below that temple, there is a row of Corinthian columns. We call that row of columns a colonnade. And those Corinthian columns come straight out of ancient Rome. So you have a lot of Greek and Roman influence in those art-style buildings. London House has also been adaptively reused. And all that is a fancy way to say we think sustainably. And instead of tearing a building down, we just changed the inside of the building to turn it into something new. This building was originally designed to be the London Guarantee and Accident Insurance Company. They were an American insurance company based out of the UK. What better way to ensure your sailors knew they were safe than to put your insurance company right here in a very astute building? The London House is now a hotel that's owned by Hilton. After today's cruise, you can pop up to the rooftop bar for about a $25 cocktail and enjoy a little different perspective of all the buildings right here on the main stem of the river. And you can also check out Evolution Avenue and hopefully agree with me that it doesn't look a closed matchbook when you see it from above. We get another Beaux-Arts building coming up here. This one's also on the left, has a giant dome on top with 4 domes on each corner. This is 35 East Wacker Drive, completed in 1926, designed by Yaber and Dinkelberg. This building is also covered in terracotta tile. Another benefit of terracotta is it's actually fireproof. And what used to be hiding behind those domes on the corner, there used to be water tanks up there. What better way to fight fire than to put water above it, right? Chicago had a major problem with fire, and we will talk more about that later in the cruise as well. But eventually the building got a sprinkler system, and they no longer need the water tanks in the roof. And when you guys come back next summer, you can fight everybody in the city for what will probably be the hottest reservation to try to get. Because this building has got a $35 million endowment, and they're putting a rooftop bar on the top of that. In each of those little domes on the corner, there's going to be a dining room table up there, and you can have your dinner in one of those domes. It will become probably the hardest reservation to get in the city of Chicago. I'm super excited for the rooftop bar to open on this building. It's going to give us another spot to hang out on the riverfront. This building was originally called the Jewelers Building. They wanted to entice the jewelers and watchmakers that were coming to the city to move into the building. Another concern about you guys, though, in the 1920s, I don't think a lot of people were streets that had pockets full of gold and diamonds, because Al Capone and his band of henchmen were also roaming around the streets, and their pockets happened to be full of guns. So they actually added a security system into this building. You could drive your car into an elevator from street level, and it would take you up to where your office was. You did not have to worry about potentially getting robbed coming in and out of your office. That was still not enough to entice the jewelers and watchmakers to move in, so they eventually took that elevator out to make room for more office space. There's a rumor that Al Capone used to hang out at the Stratosphere Lounge, which is at the very top of this building. But this building opened in 1926, and Al Capone became a resident of Alcatraz in 1925. So there is no way Al Capone was hanging out at the Stratosphere Lounge. As soon as we clear this bridge, we're going to see another architectural style that's extremely common here in the city, and that is postmodern architecture. Postmodern architecture was the movement in response to modernist architecture. Remember, modernist architects, their slogan is less is more. Postmodern architects, their slogan is less is more. So if you look directly to your left, you're going to see a gray building with silver inlets in the windows. And notice all the decoration and ornamentation has come back to this building. Postmodern architects were also really keen on contextualism. We're talking about where a building is actually constructed. If you look at the base of this building, check that pattern out. Look a third of the way up. Notice that pattern repeats itself. And then check out the two neighboring buildings. That pattern repeats itself at the exact same height of its two neighbors. That is, this building having a conversation with its neighbors are talking about the context in which the building is actually constructed. This is the Leo Burnett building. Leo Burnett is a large advertising agency based out of the city of Chicago. They have critical likes of Tony the Tiger, the Pillsbury Doughboy, and the Jolly Green Giant. You have likely seen many commercials that feature Leo Burnett characters. They have also created some more infamous characters, but I will let you guys do a little bit of research on that on your own. I don't need to tell you all the fun things you should know about Leo Burnett. We're standing on the left, we're dropping our eyes down the river level though, and we're looking for the wooden Tiny Tap on a storefront. Tiny Tap is one of the rooms of the Chicago Riverwalk. Each space between our bridges is known as a room, and each room's a little bit different. Here at Tiny Tap, you can have a frosty beverage and a fried plate of food. We just passed City Winery where you can have a glass of wine. And then the room that's coming up is known as the theater. Hope you guys brought your performance shoes because you were on stage today for everybody that is hanging out at the theater watching what's happening on the river. The Riverwalk was part of the 1909 plan that Daniel Burnham introduced. I don't know if he envisioned you could do a bar crawl down it, but you can absolutely do so today. The Riverwalk goes all the way from Lake Michigan, all the way down to the confluence of the river where we are headed. It was completed between 2014 and 2016, and it was designed by Carol Ross Party Architects, two female-owned architecture firms. If you've not had a chance to take a stroll down the Riverwalk, I encourage you to do so. It's a great way to get around the city, so you don't have to stop at every intersection on Wacker Drive to make your way down the main stem of the river. As soon as we clear this bridge, we're looking for a building that kind of looks like a chair or a throne, and it has an American flag directly above the door. This is the LaSalle Wacker building. Well, the American flag is gone today, so it just clearly made me a liar. But it still does look like an armchair or a throne. This is the LaSalle Wacker building, completed in 1930, designed by Halliburton Group and Robordi and Wentworth. This building is an Art Deco building. Art Deco buildings really emphasize their verticality. So you have windows that are taller than they are wide, and those uninterrupted bands of stone naturally draw your eye to the top of the building. Art Deco buildings also have very decorated lobbies. If you've never popped into an Art Deco building, I will point a couple out on today's cruise. And this building has this unique shape to it due to a 1923 zoning ordinance. We said architects, if you're going to build a building above a certain height, right, you got to push part of that building back. We call it a setback in architecture. And that allows the sunlight and the wind to actually come down to the sidewalk. We learned this lesson from the city of New York. We didn't want the same thing to happen to New York to happen here. There's some blocks in New York where the sunlight gets never close to the ground because the buildings are all too tall. We did not want that to happen. That setback not only helps you and I out as we're roaming around the streets, but it helped the folks out that were working in the office back in the day. So in the 1930s, we did not have all the modern HVAC technology that we have today. And so that setback creates a natural light and a natural wind port in the building. And so in the hot summer months, it wasn't too hot in the building, so you could actually still work. Got a wedding up there. On the left side of the boat, there's a building with two little white domes on the corners of it and two toothpicks sticking out of the domes. This is 225 West Racker Drive, completed in 1989, designed by the architecture firm known as KPF or Cone, Pedersen & Fox. They are based out of the city of New York. This building is another postmodern building. We talked about postmodern architects, really emphasizing the contextualism of a building. We're talking about where the building is actually constructed. As soon as we get out from this bridge, if you look at the top of the building, you're going to notice there's a massive window up there. And going across that massive window, there's actually a bridge. And that bridge is going to make the bridges that go across the Chicago River. The corner of the building is also, corners of the building actually represent the bridge houses. If you're not familiar with what a bridge house is, if you look at the bridge directly in front of us on the corner, there's a little tiny house. That's where all the gears and controls are for all of our movable bridges. So the corners of this building are to represent the bridge houses for the bridge that's going across the window. Directly below that bridge is a giant urn. That urn is actually a nod back to Frank Lloyd Wright. He's a very famous Chicago architect. We're not going to see any Frank buildings on today's cruise. He did not build anything on the river. However, if you did not get your architecture fill on my cruise today, we do have some walking tours that feature Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. So you can check those out if you need to. Listen to how loud that train's going behind us. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But the building that's coming out to the left, this green curving building, is also designed by KPF. If architects can grab any corner of a city, they're going to do so because they can really truly make it their own. So KPF has completed 333 West Racker Drive in 1983, and this building has every element of postmodern architecture you could possibly imagine. The building is curved to the road that passes in front of it. There are two different shades of green glass on this building to mimic the color change that's happening in the water below us, because we're entering what's known as the confluence of the river. The confluence is where all three branches of the Chicago River come together, and the water truly does change colors here. We get that nice blue water from the main stem, as well as some more kind of brown and green water coming in from the north and south branches, and that's reflected in these two different shades of glass in the building. You also get a really nice reflection in this building of all the buildings across the way. This building having a conversation with its neighbors. If you're familiar with Ferris Bueller's Day Off, this is where Ferris's dad worked. My favorite fact about this building, though, is hiding behind those gray and black tiles at the base. That's the mechanical system for the building. Typically, we put those on the roof. But in 1983, we had not invented soundproof glass yet, and you guys heard just how loud that train was. There's another train track that passes right behind this building. So to minimize the noise pollution, they brought the mechanical systems down and put the offices up, so the folks working in the office didn't go crazy from the train sounds. Directly in front of us, there's a building set a little further back from the river. It has a giant curve at the base and a curly red sculpture in front of it. This is River Point, completed in 2017, designed by Pickard Chilton Architects. River Point set a little further back from the river due to the fact that there's active train tracks that pass directly in front of this building. If you look at the wall in front of this building, you're going to notice those little round windows in the wall. We call those porthole windows. But look closely. They're actually not windows. They're exhaust fans, because there are exhaust fans there to suck all the diesel fumes out of the trains that pass directly in front of this building. The building being set pretty far back creates this nice little park where that sculpture is. That sculpture is known as Constellation, designed by Santiago Calatrava. River Point is also a LEED certified building. That is LEED, stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and it's used to rank how sustainable a building is. There are 4 levels of LEED certification. LEED Platinum is the highest, and that's what River Point actually has. We just made our turn up the North Bridge. The North Bridge is my favorite part of the river to talk about. It's undergoing a lot of change, and it also houses our oldest building. Off the left side of the boat, there's a pink brick building that is known as Fulton House. It was completed in 1898, and it was designed by Frank Abbott. When the building first opened, it was not called Fulton House. It was the American Cold Storage Facility. They would bring produce and meat here, and they would freeze it, and then they would load it on barges and streetcars and ship it all around the country. It was converted to condominiums in the 1980s, and it took 6 months to thaw the building out because it was completely a frozen solid. And as they started to put the holes in for the windows and the balconies, the building started to crack. So hiding behind each one of those stars is a reinforcement rod that had to be shoved through the building to make sure the building was structurally sound. You can see just how thick the walls are by seeing how deep the balconies are cut in. Not only did it take 6 months for this building to defrost, it took 500 semi-trailers to remove the horsehair that was stuck between the walls back for insulation. Harry Weiss was the architect that did the adaptive reuse on this building, and he designed our next little 4 townhomes that are coming up here. On the left, they have triangle-shaped roofs like sails on a sailboat. These are known as river cottages, and they were completed in 1988. Harry Weiss is an avid sailor, so you get a lot of nautical themes in his buildings. You have triangle-shaped roofs like the sails on a sailboat, those round porthole windows in the back, and notice each one of these townhomes has their own little tiny boat dock. Even though these were completed in 1988, the first one did not hit the public market until 2015. And in 2015, it sold for just over $2 million. So if you save your pocket change, and maybe not in the museum, you can have a little right here in the Chicago River. Alright, we've talked extensively about things on the left, so let's go to the right for a minute so she doesn't feel left out. We have this blue building with these concrete bands on it. This is the East Bank Club, and it's a health club. It was completed in 1979. Back in the day, you could find Barack Obama and Oprah Winfrey working out here, but that's not why we're talking about it. In 1979, when this building was constructed, it almost looked like a warehouse in the back. There was not too many windows. That's because in the 1970s, the Chicago River was not something anybody wanted to see, and trust me, it was not something anybody wanted to smell. However, by the 1980s, we had gotten a little serious about cleaning up our river, and so they put an addition on, the East Bank Club, and they added all these windows on the back. So now if you're in there playing a game of tennis or running on the track, you can get a little glimmer of sunlight and catch a little glimpse of the Chicago River. And that is in what's stark contrast to what we're passing here on the left side of the boat. We're passing on the left side of the boat is this row of townhomes as well as this condominium tower. And this is called Kinsey Park, and it was completed in 2002. Papa George Times is our architect here, and it shows you just how much the attitude towards the river has changed in almost a 30-year span. Each one of these townhomes has their own little teeny tiny private rooftop. They have their own balcony above their door, and they also have their own little private front yard. So you have multiple spots to walk out your door and actually enjoy the Chicago River. So just how much the attitude of the folks has changed towards the Chicago River. More importantly though, if you check out the front of these townhomes, you're going to notice that sidewalk that's in front of them. And that's not a private sidewalk, guys. That sidewalk is actually a publicly accessible river walk. In 1998, the city introduced an ordinance and they said anybody that develops on the banks of the river has to include a public river walk. That allows you and I to go out and enjoy the riverfront property without having to actually own property on the riverfront. There is not enough riverfront property for all the citizens of Chicago and all of our visitors to come out and enjoy the riverfront. And so the Riverwalk Ordinance gives us the ability to do so. We're going to go back to the right, and we're going to look at this brick building with these hanging balconies off of it. Anytime you see balconies that hang off a building like this, it's a sign of adaptive reuse. Remember that. There may or may not be a quiz later. This building is now known as Riverbank Lofts, but it was originally completed in the early 1900s, and it was a warehouse. And there was a bunch of train tracks here. They would load all the goods in here, pull out them on the train tracks. But it was converted to condominiums, or its adaptive reuse, happened in 1995. So what you're not going to see here is you're not going to see a Riverwalk. Because 1995 was 3 years before that Riverwalk ordinance was put into place. And so if you're lucky enough to live at Riverbank Lofts, and you live here on the first floor, you got your own little tiny riverfront patio. Who wouldn't want that? One of my fellow docents lives there, and she keeps telling me how beautiful her condo is, but she keeps failing to invite me to her Christmas party. So I'm wanting you guys to put the good juju out there that 2026 is the year I get this Christmas party invite, so I can actually truly see how beautiful this woman's condo is. I'm going to take a brief pause from this bridge, guys. It's typically kind of loud, and I also need some water. I'll be back in just a second. One of our feeder ramps to get onto the Kennedy. The Kennedy is our main highway that goes out to Chicago here, as well as the north suburbs. You guys probably saw too much traffic on the Kennedy for those that flew into the city. Let's go back to the right though, and look at this blue building with these white triangles going up the front of it. This is called Erie in the Park, completed in 2002, designed by Lucy Lagrange. Those triangles up in the front of the building are the support system for the building. They act like an exoskeleton on an insect. They really help the building stand up. What that does is it eliminates those giant concrete pillars that run through the floor plates of most high-rises. I've got a couple of those at my apartment. I have no idea what to do with them. All they do is block my view. I throw some lights around them around the holidays, and that's about all they're good for. If you live here in the park, you do not have that problem, so you can completely change the layout of your condo almost any way that you want, because all your structural support is on the outside of the building. It's called Erie in the Park because it's on this beautiful green space. What we're passing right now, there's a massive playground behind all those trees, and on the far end, there's a dog park, so if you're a dog fan, keep your eyes peeled. You might see a lot of cute pups that are out and about today. It's pretty nice. This park is called Montgomery Ward Park. Anybody in the boat know who Montgomery Ward is? Couple hands, couple head nods. For those that don't, I'll give you a history lesson. Montgomery Ward, you can think of him as the Jeff Bezos of the 19th century. When he moved to the city of Chicago, he was a traveling salesman. And he said, you know what? I could probably sell a lot more things to a lot more people if I don't have to stand on your front porch and beg you to buy something from me. And so he invented the idea of the mail order catalog. When his catalog company started, it was just a single page. By the time his company folded, about 65 to 70 years later, it had grown over 2,000 pages. Kids used to get super excited for the holiday edition of the Montgomery Ward catalog to show up at their house so they could circle all the things they wanted to get for Christmas. If you guys want to know how old I am, I used to get very excited for the JCPenney catalog to show up at my parents' house so I could circle all the things I wanted to get for Christmas. Also, if you guys are like me, you probably buy way too many things online. And you may or may not read the description, and something shows up to your house. I ordered a wine glass the other day, and it was about 3 inches tall. Who wants a 3 inch tall wine glass? What are you going to do with that? Thankfully, I got to send that back and get my money back. And we can thank Montgomery Ward for that as well, because Montgomery Ward invented the idea of the money back guarantee. He said, hey, these folks don't know me. I'm not on their front porch. I didn't actually sell them my goods. They have no idea who I am. If they don't like my products, they can give them back to me and get their money back. And it really allowed commerce to start expanding to the more rural parts of the country. And I wanted to tell you that story because we're entering Montgomery Ward's office complex when he worked out in the city of Chicago. Off the right side of the boat, we have this cream-colored building with those hanging balconies. What are those hanging balconies, you guys? Adaptive reuse. You guys all fail. Everybody has to go downstairs and take tequila shots because apparently we're all asleep still. It is 2:30, guys. Let's wake up. This is Montgomery Ward's original warehouse. It is now known as One River Place. It is an Art Deco building. So even though it's only 6 stories tall, your eye actually wants to go to the top of the building. But fight that urge and look right above the Riverwalk, where those folks are hanging out, and check out that flat sculpture that's on the building. It's a different color. We call that flat sculpture bas relief. And in there, you're going to see things like palm fronds and dragonflies. And those are Egyptian influences because in the 1920s and 1930s is when Art Deco buildings were being constructed. And there was a lot of Egyptian discovery happening at that exact same time. So we get a lot of Egyptian influence in Art Deco buildings. So this is Montgomery Ward's office space, was part of his warehouse. His main warehouse, though, was this gray building with a blue echo sign at the top. This building is known as 600 West. It was completed in 1908, and it was designed by Schmidt, Gardner, and Martin. This building has been adaptively reused, and it's also designed in the architecture style that's known as the prairie style of architecture. Frank Lloyd Wright was a very invented the prairie style of architecture, and prairie architecture really emphasizes its length instead of its verticality. So those brick bands between the windows naturally draw your eye down the entire length of the building. As they were doing the conversion on this building, they found a massive pile of roller skates in the basement. And there's actually photos of the gentleman that worked for the Montgomery Ward catalog company. They were called pickers. And they'd get their little black tuxes, and they'd have their roller skates on. And they would roller skate up and down this building, grabbing items to fulfill the catalog orders that were coming into Montgomery Ward catalog company. When you have a building that's about 2 city blocks long, it's a lot faster to get around it on roller skates than if you have to walk around it. Or, God forbid, run. Nobody wants to do that at work, right? We're going to make our turn here.
Right, I hope you guys enjoying this tour. I'm going to cut it short now. And we're going to go make a turn out to the left.
And they wanted the clay that was here. So they dug the clay out, and water does what it naturally does, and it flowed that direction. And it creates this nice little peninsula land where this construction crane is standing. That peninsula land is called Goose Island. Anybody had a beer from Goose Island yet? One of my favorite breweries in the city. If you guys are a craft beer fan, and you've not had one, I encourage you to check it out. Goose Island did not steal the name. They used to actually have property on Goose Island.
Talk to you later.
Now, if you see
Bye-bye.
to the right side of the boat, you gotta see where that barge is parked with a bunch of gravel.